have a moment where someone came at you sideways, just out the blue, no warning, no mercy? Maybe they disrespected you in front of people you loved, or maybe it was that subtle kind of disrespect, the tone, the look, the assumption that you weren't enough. And in that split second, your mind starts racing, your chest tightens, and the fire of every word you could say burns on the tip of your tongue. You feel it, don't you? That urge to respond, to defend, to correct, to let them know who they're messing with. But I want to talk to the version of you that's not just trying to react, but trying to rise. The version of you that knows your worth isn't up for debate. See, there's a power in silence that we don't talk about enough. Because silence, oh baby, silence is weakness. Silence is strategy. Silence is strength wrapped in discipline. Silence is a woman who knows exactly who she is and doesn't need to waste her breath proving it. See, when people come at you with disrespect, what they're often fishing for is your reaction. They want the show. They want the chaos. They want the satisfaction of knowing they rattled you. But when you stand in your peace, when you look them in the eye with stillness, with clarity, you strip them of the control they were hoping to take. They expected noise. You gave them presence. And that right there, that's louder than any words you could have thrown back. Some of us are raised to clap back, raised to believe that silence meant surrender. But I came to tell you, silence is not surrender when it comes from a place of power. Silence is a decision. It's not that you don't have something to say. It's that what you could say is beneath the version of you that you're becoming. Growth will make you quiet. It'll teach you that not everything needs a response. It'll show you that dignity sometimes looks like walking away with your head high and your peace intact. Because listen, if they can pull you out of character, they get to narrate your story. And baby, you're the author. Why let somebody else write chapters with their chaos? There's a kind of quiet that's not passive. It's prophetic. The kind that speaks of a soul so anchored in purpose that it can't be moved by petty. That's the kind of quiet I'm talking about. The kind that says, you don't have access to this energy anymore. The kind that says, I've healed past the place where I need to prove my power through pain. And I know it's hard. I know it's hard when disrespect feels like a slap to the soul. I know you want to be heard, to be validated, to be defended, but sometimes God will say, let me handle it. Sometimes silence is you stepping back and letting heaven fight what your words can't fix. Sometimes silence is obedience, because what looks like restraint to the world is actually alignment with your assignment. And can I talk to the warrior in you for a second? You've fought so many battles already. Fought to be seen, fought to be heard, fought to be valued. And now God's saying, fight differently. Fight with stillness. Fight with discernment. Fight with the grace to know that just because it came to your door doesn't mean it deserves your answer. You're not who you used to be. The old you might have snapped. The old you might have made a scene. But the woman you are now, she's learned the value of her voice. She knows it's too sacred to be wasted on nonsense. She's not trying to win arguments. She's building legacies. And legacies don't have time for petty. Legacies don't argue with distractions. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them project their own brokenness onto your wholeness. Because when you refuse to lower yourself to respond, you show them what elevation looks like. You become the mirror they didn't ask for but desperately needed. And that reflection, that's what makes them uncomfortable. Not your silence, but what your silence reveals. But I get it. Your silence might be misinterpreted. They might think you're scared, that you're weak, that you don't know what to say. But that's not your business. Your business is alignment. Your business is peace. Your business is staying rooted in the truth of who you are. Because the truth doesn't need defense. It just needs time. There's something sacred about choosing not to respond. Something holy about saying I could, but I won't. That won't is not avoidance. It's elevation. It's knowing your assignment is bigger than any attempt to drag you back into cycles you already outgrew. But sometimes silence is the loudest reminder that you don't belong where you used to. It's a declaration that the place they tried to pull you into no longer holds your name. And I promise you, the same silence that they misunderstood as weakness will one day be the evidence of your growth, your wisdom, your freedom. The fires of experience and growth. It's the kind of silence that says, I know who I am and I don't need to prove it to you. That's not weakness. That's mastery. Because it takes more strength to hold your tongue than to release every thought that rushes to your lips in the heat of the moment. It takes more courage to stand still when everything in you wants to react. And it takes deep maturity to know that some battles aren't even worth your voice. When you know your worth, you don't argue with fools. You don't get dragged into every moment of disrespect because you understand something powerful. Your energy is valuable. Every time you respond to foolishness, you give a piece of yourself away. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your days exhausted, not from work, not from purpose, but from constantly trying to defend your name to people who don't even have access to your life. Silence in the face of disrespect isn't saying, I accept this, it's saying, this is beneath me. It's refusing to let someone else's immaturity pull you out of your identity, because when you've been through enough, when you've cried behind closed doors and healed in silence, you learn that peace is too expensive to trade for petty. True strength is restraint. It's standing in the storm and choosing calm. It's watching someone try to provoke you and knowing you can respond, but choosing not to. That's power. That's a woman or man who's learned the difference between a moment and a mission. The moment might tempt you to react, but the mission reminds you to rise. You can't afford to be reactive when you've been called to be reflective. You can't waste your breath on people who don't even speak your language of growth. And you definitely can't let temporary offense derail your destiny. That's why silence is so powerful. It protects what's sacred. It builds a barrier around your peace and says, not everything gets in, not everything gets. People often think loudness is strength, but volume doesn't equal value. Just because someone's yelling doesn't mean they're right. Just because you're quiet doesn't mean you're weak. Sometimes the strongest person in the room is the one who didn't say a word because they didn't need to. Their presence spoke. Their peace spoke. Their refusal to be moved spoke louder than any insult that was thrown their way. Let them wonder why you didn't react. Let them try to figure out what your silence meant. You don't owe them an explanation. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself purpose. And sometimes walking away in silence is the loudest declaration that you've outgrown the noise. Because real strength doesn't roar, it whispers. I'm still here and I choose peace over pride. Not reacting to disrespect protects your peace and preserves your power. When someone comes at you with disrespect, whether it's a harsh word, a dismissive tone, or a subtle jab, it can feel like an attack on your identity. Everything in you wants to stand up and shout back, to set the record straight, to demand the respect you deserve. That's a natural response. But here's the thing. Every reaction comes with a cost. And the question you have to ask yourself is, what am I paying for this moment? Peace is not passive. is not just the absence of conflict, it's the presence of clarity, purpose, and emotional stability. When you choose not to react to disrespect, you are making a conscious decision to protect that peace. You are saying, I refuse to let someone else's words or behavior disrupt what I've worked so hard to build inside of me. Because inner peace doesn't come easy. It's been earned through years of healing, through letting go of toxic relationships, through learning how to sit with your emotions instead of being consumed by them. That kind of peace is priceless, and it's fragile. It can be chipped away one response at a time. Every time you let someone pull you into their chaos, they don't just steal a moment, they steal momentum. Your focus, your clarity, your joy, all of it becomes collateral damage when you give your power to someone else's immaturity. Disrespect is often an invitation to step out of character, an invitation to stoop down to their level. But when you decline that invitation with silence or stillness, you're making a statement much louder than words could ever be. You're saying, I don't live at the level of your insult, I live at the level of my purpose. That kind of restraint, that's power. That's emotional authority. See, power isn't always about control over others, it's about control over yourself. When you can master your emotions, when you don't allow someone else to dictate your mood or your mindset, that's true power. Because disrespect is often a test to see if you really believe in your identity, a test to see if you're anchored or if you're still tossed around by every opinion that comes your way. And the ones who pass the test are not the ones who speak the loudest, but the ones who choose silence when their soul is calling for peace. You can tell how far you've come by what you no longer respond to. Things that used to rattle you don't even move you anymore, not because you don't care, but because you've matured. You've learned that not every battle is yours to fight. Some things are better left unanswered. Some disrespect doesn't deserve your energy, it deserves your absence. And you never meant to carry. And let's be clear, choosing not to react doesn't mean you're letting people walk all over you. It means you're walking away from nonsense that doesn't align with your destiny. You're protecting your spirit from being entangled in mess you were never meant to carry. That's strength, that's wisdom, that's walking in power. Sometimes the greatest flex is being unbothered, not because you're numb, but because you're healed. Not because you didn't hear what they said, but because you know it doesn't define you. And when you start living from that place, when peace becomes your priority, disrespect can knock, but it won't get a response. It'll find a closed door, a locked gate, a soul too grounded to be shaken. So the next time someone tries to come at you with words meant to wound, remember, your peace is worth more than their opinion. Your power lies not in how loud you respond, but in how deeply you remain rooted in who you are. That kind of stillness this world doesn't expect, but desperately needs. Growth often looks like choosing stillness over retaliation. When you start to evolve, really evolve, not just on the surface, but deep in your soul, something changes. The things that used to trigger you don't even touch you the same way anymore. You begin to realize that every reaction isn't worth your energy, and every offense isn't worth your time. You begin to value your peace more than your pride. That's what real growth does. It teaches you that silence can be an act of strength and stillness can be a sign of power. In a culture that glorifies clapbacks and quick comebacks, choosing stillness can look like weakness to some, but to those who understand what it takes to hold back, it's clear that's maturity, that's transformation, That's the fruit of healing, because it takes a healed heart to hear disrespect and not let it dictate your behavior. It takes a renewed mind to feel the sting of an insult and still choose grace. That's not cowardice, that's wisdom, that's discernment, that's growth. Stillness doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you decided not to be led by your feelings. You've come to a place where your response is no longer controlled by emotion, but by vision. Vision for who you're becoming. Vision for where you're going. And when that vision is clear, you no longer let every slight, every word, every attitude pull you into the chaos you worked so hard to escape. There's something powerful about being able to sit in a moment and not let that moment master you. You're not avoiding conflict, you're mastering yourself. You're not afraid of confrontation, you're simply more invested in your elevation, because growth will always shift your priorities. You start asking, is this worth my peace? Is this conversation necessary? Will this help me grow or pull me backwards? And more often than not, you'll find that the silence you choose is more productive than the argument you could have had. When you're truly growing, you stop needing to prove anything to anyone. You stop needing the last word. You stop needing to show up for battles that don't fit the season you're in. You start recognizing that some fights are sent to distract you, not develop you. Some disrespect is rooted in someone else's insecurity, not your inadequacy. And when you see it for what it is, you can stand still. Not because you don't care, but because you care too much about your future to waste time. Stillness is a fruit of the Spirit. It's evidence that you're walking with more than just your ego. You're walking with purpose. And purpose doesn't flinch at petty. Purpose doesn't fold at offense. Purpose keeps moving, even when provoked. And that's why growth and stillness go hand in hand. Because you can't grow and stay reactive. You can't evolve and still be triggered by the same things that used to shake you. The more you grow, the more you'll understand the power of restraint, the power of taking a breath instead of throwing a word, the power of walking away instead of lashing out. And the deeper you go in your healing, the more you'll see that stillness is not about doing nothing. It's about doing the right thing at the right time. It's about knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to confront and when to let go. You don't have to respond to prove your strength. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay grounded, stay centered, stay quiet, and let your growth speak for itself, because when you're rooted in who you're becoming, you no longer need to defend who you used to be. Your silence can speak louder than any defense. It reflects elevation. There comes a point in your journey where words are no longer your first weapon, not because you've run out of things to say, but because you've grown past the need to say them. Silence becomes your language when you've matured to the place where your peace matters more than being understood, your purpose matters more than being right, and your purpose outweighs your pride.